Thank you for sitting with us, Congresswoman. And the first question, this is not even a question. Shout out to Santa Ana. I was raised in Anaheim.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Anaheim Angels before they became?
Before, I don't
Before the crossover?
Angels.
I watched a couple of their games growing up.
Yeah, they're great. So we are on a mission to interview 100 Congress people, and you are number 4.
Good, good option. I should have been number 1, but I won't hold you to
You
it.
were a little busy.
Yeah.
I was
your first pick, right, Bob? Recover.
It's been a busy day.
Especially coming from Georgia.
Oh, you guys flew up in from Georgia for it?
I'm Georgia, California, Georgia.
That's
so
cool.
We're like, we love Florida. We got to get there.
We are leading the country in the White House and in politics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're right.
Well, we have a complete opposite story to start with, and it's California, where Fabian is from. So
Yeah, so I don't know how if you've seen the video, but Alex Padilla was just arrested right now, put on the floor, was resisting arrest. He broke into a meeting where Kristi Noem was having a meeting, DHS meeting, and he's been arrested. Any thoughts about what's been happening in California?
Yeah, I just saw that happen, and then shortly thereafter, there was this shouting match on the House floor, and I actually asked one of the members, I was like, why was the Dems screaming at you? And he's like, he literally just started screaming at me over Alex Padilla. So they have reporters up in the rafters, and I feel like some people do it for clicks, but it's also like, you don't look tough by yelling on the floor, and also, if you're gonna yell at someone, like, are you going to hit him? I'm obviously not advocating for violence, but it's like, what was the point of that? Because you didn't hit him.
Yeah.
So now, what are we going to like put on a world star hip hop? I don't know what the point of that was.
well, you never know. I think that's what they did, like 100+ years ago. They were beating each other with a cane. They just didn't have the internet. Yeah.
Have you seen parliament fights from around the world? It pops off in other places.
Especially the Asian parliaments.
They will like jump on each other and like take legislation, like run, and they're fast. But
they're fast.
Yeah, no, I think it was just saber rattling, peacocking.
Yeah.
Didn't mean much.
What do you think
Padilla's, you don't do that to a chick, like what do you do?
Yeah. What do you think in general, though, about elected officials being, it seems like they're helping out the riots, they're inciting the riots, or it doesn't seem like something that an elected official should be doing in the first place, and now it's escalated to this point.
They're not being statesmanly, but I actually just had a hearing where we had some of the governors that are pro-sanctuary city policy. But I think that this goes to a bigger issue, right? So like they'll talk on this from a political standpoint and say, well, the Democrats are doing this or Republicans are doing this. But actually, I pulled the financials and I actually found this great, incredible link by an analyst, data analyst by the name of Data Republican on X. And she came up with the financial ties on who's actually funding these riots. Because let's be real, these people are popping up, they're busing people in, they're getting issued gas masks or whatever it was. Expensive stuff, where is it coming from? And so it turns out that specifically to LA, so this impacts you and your community, specifically to LA, an individual by the name of Neville Singham, who's actually funded by the Communist Chinese Party, is actually the one funding it, gives to the PSL, which is a party for socialism and liberation, and it's coming literally directly from China. It lives in Shanghai part of the year. So he's funding the first one. Then we have this No Kings protest. Data Republican pulled the funding for that, all the orgs backing it. First and foremost, millions of dollars went to that organization, taxpayer funded, via literally NGOs, right? So like we funded this, and it turns out that the No Kings protests are actually also being coordinated and being supported by the Communist Chinese Party as well. Mm-hmm. So like, let's just look at this from a straight up optics perspective. Do you really think China gives a shit about illegal immigrants and Mexicans at that? Like, let's just look at this for a second. First of all, not all illegals are Hispanic. That's a false narrative that's being pushed. Secondly, not all Hispanics are Mexicans. That's also a false narrative. Third of all, they're passing out Mexican flags. You can see they're brand new flags. Like, I'm sorry, I've never seen that many Mexican flags in my life. And I literally grew up in LA. I'm half Mexican. Like, I think I would know seeing them growing up. But that's the other thing, is that you see this propaganda war. So we were joking earlier, and I actually have David, who's right here, and he's kind of the meme king for The Office. And so we started saying, like, this is ridiculous. Literally, Timu, can you show them the meme? It's funny. It's like Timu riots, sponsored by China.
Riots, that's
yeah, Timu riots. We have...
Oh, that's great.
I mean, like, show the camera.
Buy
it's
for
funny.
half the cost.
Yeah, right? Like, literally.
Order your riot
brought
right here
to
on
you by
Temu.
Temu, right? Walmart's big mad on the tariffs. You have the Walmart heiress literally funding this. Meanwhile, she's never worked a day in her life. So let's look at it. What they're doing optically is they're taking Hispanic Americans, specifically Mexicans, largest voting minority in the country. They're taking the immigration debate and trying to say that that's what it's about. Meanwhile, Barack Obama deported more people, was known as a deporter-in-chief.
Deporter-in-chief.
And so actually, I said, so do you think Barack Obama was a good president? And every Democrat, if they're, worried about re-election, they're going to say, of course he's a great president. So Barack Obama has the same policy positions that Republicans have right now. You can find those clips online. So this is propaganda brought to you by the CCP. We're not buying it. And so we are calling Neville Singham in to testify to Congress. If he doesn't show up, he'll get subpoenaed. And if he doesn't do that, he'll go to jail.
I'm so happy to hear this.
Straight to
because
jail.
Ever since Code Pink became a thing on Capitol Hill like a year and a half ago.
Also funded by Singham.
Exactly. I started to look into Nival Roy Singham, and I realized this man is an oligarch that is propped up by the CCP, goes to CCP propaganda forums, speaks at them.
A devout mouse, like what a punk mouse. Like, and by the way, Code Pink, so they came to my office to protest me. So our office knows, we support free speech. We're going to give them tissues next time they come back, for their stuff. But, going back to Code Pink, they're using Palestinians now. Meanwhile, if you care about Palestinians or Muslims, okay, what about the Uyghur Muslim? We're going to talk about that. You're getting your money from communist China. So literally Marxists, again, using another social class to push an agenda going back to benefiting China.
And I love when we confronted her at the cafeteria a couple months ago.
Oh, you found the lady?
Oh, yeah. When I saw Medea Benjamin, I was like, yes, we're going right
Locked on
after
target.
him.
Right after.
And he gave me the good idea, come up to her, say that you're a friend, blah, blah, blah. I was like,
Lure
no,
her
I
in
love
and then
you.
hit her with the questions.
Boom. The funniest thing about her is that she knows exactly who Roy Singham is, but she says he's not getting funded by the CCP.
We literally have transactions.
Yeah.
What is Congress, I know that Congress is going to bring him to testify, but what is the plan with such organizations, NGOs, that are obviously funding these
This
crazy
is the
stuff
first time
with
that it's actually
destabilization?
happening.
First
So, and
time.
it's happening because obviously other members of Congress support this, but no one thought to call them in before. So, these people also keep trying to issue subpoenas to Elon Musk. So the next time they do that, I'm going to have a subpoena waiting for George Soros. And what I would have to say is that what you're seeing is this. So you have these riots now that are being painted using illegals as a ruse, right? They're trying to hype up the Hispanic base. They really don't give a shit about illegals or Hispanics, to be honest with you. So you have the Singhams of the world that are actual Marxists, and then you have the Soros that are globalists and objective, though, and the populist movement, what Trump is doing, all of that. And so both parties also are taking money from the CCP or engaged in helping their efforts. And so what I'd say is it's an ideological war at the heart of this. It's good that we have social media and X. Had Elon Musk not purchased X, we would have been screwed on being able to message us. We caught it right in the nick of time to where credits due to Data Republican, Mike Pence, all these people that have been doing the research that congressional investigators should have been doing. They're doing it. It's actually helping. Glenn Beck's also done some stuff on it. So, it's getting out there, it's disseminating, and then you actually have literal, people, whether it's, previously in Chicago during BLM, or literally gang members in East LA and Compton saying, hey, no disrespect, but we're not going to riot here.
Yeah.
Whatever that means. Of course, no disrespect, but like
Imagine self-policing as a thing.
self-policing.
And gangs are doing it?
And Gavin Newsom, the only time he ever bothered cleaning up San Francisco was when Xi Jinping was rolling down. And meanwhile, we literally in like the last week or so, you had multiple agro-terrorism attempts at attack from Chinese. You're telling me that the CCP didn't know what they're doing to have social credit systems in China. So look, China wants to knock us off the block in being the global competitor, right? They want to be number one. We are in the way of that. So you're seeing this kind of alignment. What I would say is right now, I'm really happy that Trump's in office, because with that alignment, you have kind of the alliances that are brokered. If Trump didn't get elected, make no mistake, we probably would have engaged in World War III already, because you have people pushing, and this gets into the whole Ukraine-Russia debate. I can go to that separately. But yeah, you have people that are actually voting on war funded by people that benefit from war, i.e. the defense contractors. So tell me that that's not a conflict of interest.
I think it's interesting that George Soros kind of started this entire thing with this Open Society Foundation and using his reflexivity, which, with buying DAs and things like that, good bang for your buck. China, Qatar, all these other countries saw that probably, and they were like, well, we can do that exponentially
They can
larger.
replicate it, yeah.
Exactly.
And there's
now-
people, like Singhams of the world that want to be billionaires. They don't give a shit how they make it, so they'll take the money.
Yeah, and now there's a bunch of copycats that are copying that model, and it's all bad for us,
Yeah.
and it's all good for them, especially when we're giving them all the Timu money to China to come back and spend it to try to destabilize.
I'm going to call these the Timu riots
Timu
of
riots, I love
2025.
Yeah. So I did want to ask, you've introduced a few bills to help abused and trafficked children. I work closely with the Mom Army. There's a survivor-led organization to help children traffic, and Seek Smith, the founder of it, she wanted me to ask you. She said that there's only 600 beds in the entire country to help rehabilitate abused and trafficked children. And are the Republicans looking to get behind a bill that can expand that?
I'm sure. What I can tell you, though, is unfortunately I haven't seen a massive push from Republicans even to raise the mandatory minimum for child predators, which is disgusting.
And why is that the case to be?
I don't know. I think they're just like, it is what it is. We don't want to interfere, but it's like, dude, you have people that have assaulted kids, women, whatever it is, and 5 years here. So you assault someone, you ruin their life. I was just down at the maximum security prison in El Salvador. They don't have capital punishment, but we wrote their parliament to actually see if they could change the constitution to bring capital punishment up, because you have people that have literally committed human rights abuses. They're finding mass graves because of some of these gang members. And then you have members of Congress going down there and having margaritas with these people. And it's just like, you can't, I get it. People want to get reelected, but also you're going to die one day. So I hope that you are ready to meet God, because that's not going to be a good conversation.
Yeah, I was in El Salvador before it all changed, before Bukele came. And
oh man, that's wild.
One of the most insane places I've ever been, just to be there and have tattoos and have people look at you and the cops and things like that, and so many guns everywhere.
Would not recommend prior to Bukele. I'm glad that you came back with peace.
But now we endorse it, right?
Yeah, no, it's great. It's safe now.
Yeah.
I'd go down there with my family vacation in Surf City, but before, scary.
There's a lot of rumors regarding El Salvador now after Bukele that he just cracked down on everybody, no due process, the same stuff that we hear
It's a
now
lie.
here.
Yeah.
You can debunk that for us?
Yeah, there's due process, there's files on all these people. I brought back footage and posted it of human rights abuses. Not one national media outlet actually put it up there. And CNN has asked me on, a few times they'll cancel on me, mainstream outlets ask me on, they cancel on me, because I'm not, I'm not going to.
Look a hypocrite.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
That's great.
There's some people saying that China has donated so much to El Salvador, buses and arms and things like this. Are you seeing kind of Bukele playing both sides, where he's saying whoever's going to treat me better, I'll go with them? No,
Bukele is definitely an ally of the United States. I think China is willing to throw money wherever they can. Here, they'll build a library here, they'll build a road here. It is a problem, though, China's influence in South America. We've spent so much time in the Middle East not focusing on shoring up relations in South America, which would also help stabilize the mass immigration that they have to the United States. But again, that goes into our foreign policies and why decisions here matter. So you have these idiots arguing about shit that doesn't matter, and then you have stuff that does matter. And so that's why it's like, you guys can point fingers all you want on the riots, but why is no one talking about the financial ties? They're all, hitting Elon on being a billionaire, interfering in elections and all this stuff, but they don't want to call out George Soros, so never seeing him literally taking money from China. That's crazy to me.
By the way, when you subpoena George Soros, can you get Alex Soros, Huma Abedin, and just throw Anthony Weiner in there?
That's the thing. People keep talking about George Soros.
I'm not the only. I don't have subpoena authority, so these people have to vote for it, right? But I'm just saying that if they're going to try to subpoena Elon Musk every day, well, then why the hell are we not going to try to subpoena George Soros?
Rita Hoffman, throw them all in there.
If anyone who is taking money from the Communist Chinese Party or looking to undermine and destroy the fabric of this country, isn't George Soros banned in 7 countries?
But the problem now is that he passed everything to his son, who is now also engaged or married to Huma Abedin.
And you can look at how many politicians take money from them.
My favorite thing about Alex Soros is that George Soros had this he was an enigma. People never really saw him. He only spoke at events. Alex Soros is on Twitter.
Lord.
And I love seeing him get absolutely eviscerated on Twitter by all of these people who just don't care. They're not scared of him like people were scared of his father, because he's out in the open more.
I think it's more or less, though, that, Soros, in what he did, he was responsible for dropping the British pound. So the guy is not an idiot. He's unfortunately very smart and very calculated. And I don't know Alex. I don't want to know Alex. But what I can tell you is that when you look at kind of the financial influence that Soros had, that's hard to replicate. Also, Soros has a really interesting story that a lot of people don't know that people should check out.
Oh, being a Jew, I know. We will leave this out of this.
And he has a really good book called The Alchemy of Finance, which I think everybody should read, because he literally, because of his own ego, he says exactly what he wants to do and how he's going to do it, and then he did it. So if you just read his book, it's that's
there's one that did a deep dive on the Obama administration, is the man behind the curtain that did want to read. Yeah.
Congresswoman, to finish it off, we asked our audience to submit questions for you, and every single question was the same thing, and I think you know what it is. We need an update. We need an update.
I actually don't.
Okay. I feel
my telepathy is broken.
Everyone wants to know what's going on with the JFK files, MLK files, 9/11 related documents. Where are we in? What's going on?
The U.S. government released over 80,000 pages of the JFK files. And actually, David, can you hand me the top binder? I'm just going to read them. So we had 5 outstanding documents. I've been working with an individual by the name of Jeff Morley, who's one of the top investigators on JFK, but it doesn't just stop with Morley. I've been also working with Oliver Stone, Roger Stone, a few people actually in the investigations. And I actually just had the CIA in my office earlier because Director Radcliffe is one of us, and he's definitely a believer in transparency. So we had 5 remaining documents. Last week, the Joe Needy's file that was previously talked about in the 90s during a FOIA declassification, there was a 44-page document that the American people could see. It was on Joe Needy's. That was actually declassified last week and is available on the CIA FOIA website and will be released actually by Mr. Morley here pretty soon in an article, just so people can understand what they're fully looking at. There's also some individual on Mr. Garcia, 180 pages, that's dropping on Monday or Tuesday. These are outstanding documents that no one could get.
Wow.
And these were actually coming from the CIA. There's also one on Harvey and Monsanto. The timeline will be also probably shortly thereafter. And then the last document that is outstanding was an Inspector General report that implicated the CIA in the assassination of JFK. And they are still tracking that down, but the CIA is fully complying with that. And all that information is available to the American people on the National Archives website. In regards to Robert F. Kennedy, all that stuff has also been dropping. To be clear, the archivist, so how it works was even under Biden, so no matter where you are politically, Biden also authorized tranches of documents that the archives never released to the American people under his administration because it was classified with the deep state in these intelligence agencies. When you have the different appointments come through with Director Radcliffe at the CIA, Kash Patel at the FBI, and then Tulsi Gabbard at ODNI, it's a collaboration to release these documents. So you have all of that, and then you also have Martin Luther King. You'll see, and you're actually seeing already reporting from Mario Narwhal, I believe his name is on Twitter, that there was actually a collaborative effort among the CIA to cover up what's happening with Martin Luther King. And then also you'll see some interesting stuff come out on the RFK testimony, of which we've asked the secretary to see if he'd be willing to come in and testify. So RFK Jr. in his father's assassination. So there's a lot there. It's transparency. I don't hold declassification, but we are conducting the investigations. There's a lot of people that say, well, why do you need a committee? Well, you need a committee because, as you're seeing, there's a lot of follow-up on these documents, and there's only a certain amount of people that are actually focusing on this because we have so much going on simultaneously in Congress, whether it's budgeting, whether it's dealing with potentials of war, foreign relations, all of this stuff. So this is all something that historically should be respected. And so we'll be issuing the final report on Robert F. Kennedy for those that don't want to read through 80,000 pages and 5 documents in the next couple of months. Yeah.
I don't know if you can answer this question, but what do you think happened in that situation?
With what? Martin Luther King?
With JFK.
I think that JFK was surrounded by people that did not have the same ideologies for de-escalation. He was against the war machine, and the CIA branded him as a communist and therefore didn't act when they knew of a assassination plot probably tied to other actors or entities in the CIA.
Interesting.
And it was also on record from one of the doctors that was actually in the actual hospital room that he was brought to after he was shot. This was just entered into the record. We had him testify to us in the previous congressional meeting a couple weeks ago that he saw both entry wounds and exit wounds from the front and the back, meaning that there were multiple shooters, meaning that JFK was shot from both the front and behind.
Wow.
By the way, they said I was a conspiracy theorist for that. That's right.
And that's my final question there. Is the government engaged in a cover-up? Has engaged in a cover-up? I don't even know if you can answer that. Or did the public just draw a bunch of illusions for itself based off hot topics?
No. The American people largely rejected the Warren Commission's cover-up on the assassination of JFK, and the Warren Commission was put forward by Congress, and it was absolute to push a narrative that there was a lone gunman theory and shooter. That has been something that multiple witnesses have testified that the Warren Commission either omitted evidence, did not enter it, or bullied them into testimony. The doctor that testified to us actually stated that they threatened his medical license. So This was actually an orchestrated effort. You can actually see internal documents that the CIA actually did reject the lone gunman theory. And then now you're also seeing the CIA, based on the admissions from some of these reports that just came out today, actually, that the CIA definitely made an attempt to push Oswald. They had absolute communication with him. So did the government attempt to cover up the assassination of JFK and what actually happened back in the 60s? I believe that, yes. Is the government currently working towards transparency under this administration? Absolutely. I have proof. You see that in the pudding with all the documents that have been declassified that are now available to the American people.
Amazing.
So I'm not to say there's both good and bad in all intelligence agencies.
Yeah.
But if you're just complaining about it on social media, you're the problem. Like, if you want to see change, you have to be the change. So get active. Don't just bitch on the internet.
you think that the main reason was that he didn't want to attack, and he was saying, no, I don't want to attack, and they all wanted him to attack?
You mean JFK?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he wanted to de-escalate with Cuba. He was actually in talks with Khrushchev in Russia. The KGB actually has a file, or they have files on their own independent investigation that they conducted into JFK. And in the 90s, they actually tried to obtain those files. To much their disappointment, they were unable to. It doesn't mean that we aren't going to follow up where that previous investigation left off. We would like to obtain those files just to cross-reference our own investigation. Yeah. But it's not just me. We have great investigators, Mr. Morley and the foundation, and a lot of these activists that have been investigating JFK for decades. We take everything that they say. So Mr. Morley's actually been leading point on this investigation.
Oh, that's great.
And he's a Bernie Sanders Democrat. So this is truly bipartisan.
Yeah. Everyone wants to get down to government corruption, cover-up. So I think it's
the next person that says I'm holding back on declass, just understand I don't have declassification authority, but we are blown away by some of the evidence that we've seen. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it all makes sense at the end of the day when you see JFK rejecting Operation Northwoods, where they wanted to bomb, to make it seem like Cubans are destroying commercial airlines.
Yeah, he was surrounded by people that were undermining all that. And to be clear, there were communists at that time in our own government, but he did not want war, and that was a foreign concept. And so with everything that happened with him, you saw someone with great political potential, right? The president young, branding all of it, and then he was assassinated. That's a pretty big deal. We should understand fully what happened so it's not replicated. The difference between Trump and JFK now currently is Trump has people surrounding him that are like-minded and are within his cabinet and at every single division of these intelligence agencies that are backing him. But remember, we still don't know about what happened with the first assassination attempt on Trump.
And that's why I'm worried, Congresswoman, because it's a replication of what we saw with JFK.
There are many striking similarities. The difference is now, though, is that there are people aligned that are still fighting for Congress, in Senate, in these intelligence agencies, the department heads, and they're pushing people out. What I can tell you, though, is that isn't it interesting that they can find out information people you can look at some of the leaks on what the federal government can find out. You're telling me you don't know anything about the shooter in Pennsylvania?
And his body was cremated shortly thereafter, and everything was wiped.
Just all of a sudden we heard nothing, not a peep. So I know that the current DOJ, the current FBI, the current CIA will get to the bottom of it. Whether or not Mr. Trump, who is my friend, decides to release that information, that's his decision, very personal, obviously. But what I will tell you is I think that it's pretty interesting that the Secret Service lied under oath, intentionally did not send people to the snipers meeting, which you would think you have one job and you leave a sniper's nest open right in line of sight with the president. Very interesting.
I thought about this. If I'm Trump, and I know he must have information about this, whether he has a complete answer or some form of answer, I'm the president thinking, wow, someone actually tried to assassinate me.
Twice.
Yeah. That's in the government, and now I know who these people are.
Well, maybe not. So we don't know what the ties, but someone 2 times tried to assassinate him. One tied to Ukraine as literally a psychotic activist. Another one who's all of a sudden a self-trained sniper that's given all this information, has burner phones, and just magically is given a perfect location to shoot the president. That's weird.
It's a BlackRock commercial.
Yeah, also
put
weird.
that in there.
Weird.
We want to finish it off with one last question, and it's about Palantir.
I am a data and a privacy hawk, and so you saw the legislation that I pushed on repealing the Patriot Act. I'm thinking privacy. Patriot Act, also to pushing for against Real ID implementation. I will tell you that it does make me a little bit concerned about Palantir because of the amount of access the federal government has. It's not my job to trust the federal government blindly, but to put guardrails. But I will tell you from the way that JD Vance explained it is that it's to allow these different agencies to communicate and be able to give an access almost immediately to information instead of the agencies being fired off and firewalled off in communication with being able to find bad people. But I do think that if it is going to be truly intended for good, then we need to do things to actually ensure that things like FISA Section 0702 and Patriot, all of that is actually repealed, guardrailed, all of that. So that's why we've been proactive. If there is a time to do it, it's now because of such a slim majority. But as you're saying, we almost had a vote go down to rescind money that was going to organizations that are not friendly to the American people. So we have a lot to work to do. But again, what I can tell you is if you're young, get involved. Don't just bitch about it on the internet. Your voice does matter. Your vote does matter. That's how Trump got into office. And I've known the president personally since my goodness, 2019. And so I was with him in the courts in New York. I saw him indicted. I was with him every step of the way. I was the third member of Congress to endorse him when everyone else was running away. And what I can tell you is I've seen him, I've talked to him, I know him personally, he knows my son. And so I know Trump's intentions are good, and I do know his advisors directly. I don't tell a lot of people that, but I grew up in the political sphere with some of these people, so know the intention, but it's still my job as a member of Congress to ensure that the American people's civil liberties are being respected. So I will cross the aisle and I will work with people that you would never see me align with on these issues. Yeah. So that's it. That's all I got for you guys.
That's all we need.
Well,